What is up, everybody? So today we're just going to be talking about rigging soft plastics. So we'll do this one first. This is the drop shot rig. Okay. So we'll take it off and put it back on. Alright. So, take everything apart real quick. First thing you want to do, you're always going to tie your hook on first when you're tying a drop shot. Alright. So here's your tag end. You're going to go up 12 to 15, even 18 or 24 inches if you want your bait super high off of the bottom. But I always go 12 to 15 inches. Your pincher line, you can take your hook point up and you're gonna put it down through it. Okay. Once you get that, you're tying a Palomar knot here, guys. But I'll still show you. Once you get that, you're gonna tie an overhand knot. So you're gonna make a loop, then bring the end through the loop. Really simple. And then you're gonna take this end you just made and go over the hook. Alright, when you tighten this, it's important that you wet it. I use my mouth. You can wet it any way possible. You know, you could wet it in the lake. You could put some chapstick on there and wet it. I've heard of that. Alright, the last thing you want to do when you're tying on your hook is you take your tag end here and you take your hook, and the same way you came in through the line originally, you're going to pass your tag end back through the hook that way. And what this is going to do is this is going to make sure that your hook stays straight parallel like this. That's what's going to get good hook sets. Alright, now you can use a pencil weight. You can use, I have a teardrop weight here. It doesn't matter what you use, just make sure you don't attach the weight super firmly. When you get snagged up in the rocks or anything with your weight, you want it to pop off. You don't want to be snagged up so hard that it's never going to come off. So what I do is I tie a clinch knot, but I do not make the improved clinch knot like a normal standard fishing knot. So I'm going to put it back through here one more time. So just any kind of knot, an overhand knot, anything you can do to tie your weight on. It doesn't have to be on there super good. So now I got my hook perfectly horizontal, my weight at the bottom 15 inches away. When drop shotting, it's important to use, you know, a drop shot specific bait, whether that be like a minnow style bait or a thin worm. You're not going to want to drop shot with a Cinco. That doesn't make sense, you know? So when you're drop shotting, I love robo worms. That's my go-to for a drop shot bait, you know? This color right here, it's called prism shad. It is a great shad imitator. It's great for smallmouth. It's great for largemouth. I know that a lot of people will say, what's that color? We'll say go for a dark purple worm, you know what I mean? But prism shad happens to be my favorite. Now, most people when they hook a drop shot, how's it going? What's going on? Most people when they hook a drop shot bait onto the hook, they go straight through the nose. Bam, they call that a day. That's good. They start fishing. But the problem with this is, I've already said, the hook stays horizontal. If you have it all the way through the nose of the bait like this, you could be wiggling your hook horizontal and the bait could be straight up and down like this. What I want is I want the bait to be wiggling horizontally with the hook. So one thing you could do, I get better hookups like this, and I also lose less baits. You're gonna take it, you're gonna wanna put it on the hook, but not go all the way through. Now look at that. It's just in the nose of the bait. Now when I'm fishing like this, it's gonna stand straight sideways like this when I'm wiggling it. And when the fish bite it, I'm gonna get better hookups, lose less baits. Hera, welcome in. Welcome in, Gambalo. Welcome in, everybody. If you could hit that like, it would help out a lot. All right, next we're gonna teach the Texas rig, but I'm gonna tell you guys where you throw this and how you throw this. So when you're throwing a drop shot, you can throw this in any depth. You can throw this in 50, 70 feet of water. But also what I like to do is I like to not throw it so super deep. I like to beat the bank. So by beat the bank, I mean, when I walk up to the lake, I don't cast as far as I can in the deepest water I can. I look along the bank and I cast as far as I can along the bank, maybe 15 feet away from the bank, so that you get into 7, 9 feet of water, something that's deep enough to have fish, but also it's not straight into the lake. When you're working it along the side of the bank like that, the fish then have a place to come in and pin it. They want to attack it towards the bank. They don't want to go have to chase a fish in the open water. The fish are lazy for the most part. So when you're working it along the bank, they can come in from the deeper water, pin it towards the bank. You get way more bites. I call it beating the bank. Casting along the bank instead of... Jack, you stick around and you could be a mod. You know, you stick around for a while, you could be a mod, I promise that. Casting along the bank, you're gonna get a lot more bites than casting as far as you can, all right? So if you guys wanna see how to tie the drop shot, this is my favorite rig. When I show up to the lake, I always have a drop shot tied on. Guarantee you always have a drop shot. So if you guys wanna see it, you can go back to the beginning of the video. The next thing that I'm gonna teach is the Texas rig. Now the Texas rig is basic. Almost everyone knows it. But there's a couple tricks that can always make it better. When you've been fishing for bass for 25 years, maybe you don't know the most sophisticated things, but there's always going to be tricks you have to make everything you do a little bit better than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know what I'm saying? So for drop shot too, what I just showed you guys, the drop shot rig, this is the kind of hooks I like to use. I like to pick out a drop shot hook, but specifically these Eagle Claw Pro Series Shaw Grisby, you don't even have to set the hook with these. When you get a bite, you just start reeling and it is pinned deep. I mean, there's almost no hook that I can think of. I'm in California. There's almost no hook that I can think of that works as good as these Shaw Grisby Pro Series Eagle Claw, and they're a cheap hook. They're not super expensive. You don't have to go onto the internet and order them special. You can go to your Walmart and find these hooks. Almost guaranteed. Okay. So next we're going to talk about Texas rig. And I know when I say Texas rig, most people think, oh, Cinco. But I actually catch all my bass without ever throwing a Cinco. There's just better baits for every application. Just give me 1 second here. My soft plastic binder. If we're gonna be doing tips, we're gonna have to get some soft plastics out. We'll talk lures too, but later on. Vermont, so do you have like a lot of smallmouth there? I know that in colder places, smallmouth fisheries are more common than we got here. Okay, perfect. So, we are gonna talk about Texas rig right now. So the things you're gonna need, it's going to be a sliding weight, a bullet weight. I suggest a bullet weight over a egg weight, but if you don't have anything else, you can use an egg weight, you know, but you want to have a sliding weight. Alright, next thing you're going to want to have, these are EWG worm hooks. So the EWGs have a wider gap right here than regular weedless worm hooks. These are the ones I like to use. So the Texas rig is really simple, really. So then what do you fish for in Vermont? Tell me about it, bro. If you're gonna be my sub, you gotta tell me what you catch at least. You're gonna be my mod, you gotta tell me what you catch at least. Alright. So this is a 1/16 ounce And that's generally what I use when I'm throwing a Texas rig. I don't want it too heavy. Where I am, there's not a lot of grass and a lot of cover. For the knot, I just like to use an improved clinch knot. It's easy, it's fast. It's what I've always used for a Texas rig and hasn't really failed me too much yet. It's so simple. Alright. 10, 15 twists. You know, anything over 7 twists through the loop. And then back through the loop you just made one more time. Wet your knot. If you don't wet your knot before tensioning it, you'll notice that you just have a lot more break-offs. You have a lot more fish get away. Alright, there we go. This is how you want to set up your weight and your hook. Now you can really almost Texas rig any soft plastic. And when I mean you could almost Texas rig any soft plastic, I mean it. They make small EWG hooks. You can almost Texas rig any soft plastic, but the most common things, of course, I don't throw these. I hate throwing these, but most common things are going to be Cinco, 5-inch Cinco. Alright. Snapped your rod. You know, Walmart's great for that. You gotta get back in, you gotta go to Walmart and just get a cheap one and get back in as fast as you can. So when you're, you know, rigging for Texas rig, you're gonna wanna go in, you see this EWG. It has this straight section of hook right there. That's how I measure out how far I wanna put it into the nose of the bait. I go all the way through the straight section, I pop it out, slide it up. This little bend is called the hook keeper. So I slide it up all the way, and then you measure. It looks like, you know, the worm's gonna pop out right here, so I'm gonna put the worm through right here, right through the middle. Go as even as you can. Now this is the trick that a lot of people don't know. You know, you bury it back in. This is important when you're rigging up a Texas rig. You want to take it right here, slide it a few times, push it, pull it, make sure that the hook slides through the worm good. Okay? If it doesn't slide through here good, you're not going to get as many hookups. And then, like I said, get it straight as possible. This is a Texas rig, Gary Yamamoto Cinco. This is going to catch big fish, small fish, catch fish in every body of water. I mean, there's nothing that I can say about Texas rig Cinco that hasn't already been said. Welcome in, everybody. We're just talking about rigging tips. You know, we just went over the Cinco. Before that, we went over the drop shot, or we went over Texas rig and drop shot. If you could hit that like, it would really help out. Double tap that screen. All right. We'll do weightless. We didn't do weightless. So I'll talk about, that's the Texas rig. Alright. Weightless is going to be the same thing. I always just use an improved clinch knot. It's fast and it's easy. But there's going to be certain baits that you're going to want to use weightless more than in other baits. What up, Bay 8? We're just talking about rigging, like tips and tactics. I'm about to grab my beer. Alright. So for weightless, again, Cinco is going to be one of the go-tos. For weightless, this is what I throw. I throw Cinco's weightless. I don't throw Cinco's very often, but I throw Cinco's weightless. But more than that, I throw flukes. And it's looking like I don't have any flukes here right now. Don't Texas rig a fluke with a weight on it. What's going on, Jack? Welcome in, welcome in. So I'm just going to show you guys, again, more people in, what I do when I Texas rig. Everyone knows how to hook a Texas rig onto a hook, but there's a couple tricks when you've been doing it for so long that help out. So we got an EWG hook. You see this straight section right here, it's about 1/2 inch. I always go all the way through the straight section, all the way through out the bottom. My biggest is a 9.9 ounces. And then I caught 2 8-pounders that would be my PBs before that. Alright, so here's the trick that I have that a lot of people don't know. So I got it through. One thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this, push it forward, pull it back. You want to rip it a little bit right here. You want there to be a kind of big hole right here. You want your bait to slide along the shank of the hook real easy. What that's going to do when you get a bite, it's obviously going to expose the hook way easier. If you had just put it through there, you know, you could get a bite, the fish could be messing around, and it doesn't want to pull through the plastic very easy, especially if you're using something like Elastec. We'll get into Elastec next. It's a different kind of plastic. It's tougher. Alright, so weightless lizard. Where do you want to throw this kind of thing? Obviously, you're not going to throw it in like a super deep lake that doesn't have any cover, because it's going to take forever falling, you know? It's just going to be falling. This kind of rig, you're going to want to throw in a pond with high grass. You're looking, and the bottom of the grass is just under the surface of the water. You're going to want to throw a lizard in that kind of stuff, you know? Ponds that are covered with grass, or lakes that are super grassy, that are just, maybe the grass is just a little bit below where you'd want to throw a frog, or it's not top water anymore. You're going to want to throw this on top of the grass, underneath the surface. And when you work this, no twitches, no pops. I mean, you might think that these legs and these tails aren't even doing anything. So what if they aren't? That's when they bite. When you're moving it so slow, you think your bait doesn't even have any action, that's when they bite. So if you're going to, you know, if you're going to be fishing, and the times to throw this is going to be the hottest days of the year. I mean, late August is a perfect time to throw a weightless lizard. This is for fishing on top of the grass. If you're trying to get to the bottom, you know, just throw a regular Texas rig. Alright. So we did Texas rig, weighted and non-weighted. We did drop shot. I think we could talk about Ned rigs. And then I want to tell you guys about the chicken rig. The chicken rig is similar to a wacky rig, but it's weighted. It's a weighted wacky rig. Alright. I will be right back too. I'll be right back. I just have to grab one thing. Okay. I'll tell you guys about this one, but this is not really a rig that people talk about. This is something that I like to throw personally. I like to do this. I don't even have to tie it up. It's really simple. This is the drop shot hook. You know, the Shaw Grisby drop shot hook in a size 1. It's a wide gap drop shot hook. One thing that I really like to do, and other people might do this too, I'm doing good. So I take this drop shot hook here, and I take a drop shot bait, specifically this one right here. Rig it up like I would a drop shot. Now I throw this weightless. It's hard to cast out there. You're gonna have to throw it on your spinning combo. You're gonna have to have light gear. But this weightless on the drop shot hook, and what you do is you shake it. I mean, just real light shakes, and you'll get a perfect eel swim. It'll look like an eel swimming through the water. They go crazy for that in springtime. That is, honestly, it's super simple. It's a drop shot hook with a drop shot bait, no weight, and you shake the shit out of it. It's the eel rig. People going to drop shot all day, and you come in without the weight, and you'll just do better right behind them. everything, so all the tactics I talk about, there might be 100 people that fish in a spot before you get there, you know what I mean? All the fish that see all the baits you throw, they've seen it before. So if you're doing something, you're either gonna have to do two things. You're gonna have to do it differently than they've ever done it before, or you're gonna have to do it perfect. You're gonna have to throw that presentation flawlessly. That even being said, if you're on a super pressured lake like I'm on right now, certain things, this right here, I can't throw it because of that. On a super pressured body of water, fish stop going after rattles. Every bait that they've been hooked has had a rattle inside of it. So you start to think about that. The fish know that that rattling noise gets it. They make this both in the rattling and non-rattling. This is a perfectly silent bait. This gets eaten for me. I mean, I catch more fish on this than I do almost any other bait. But when I get the exact same bait with a rattle, it will not get eaten. Rattle. You know, like a lot of people don't pay enough attention to the small details. Don't throw that giant snap swivel on there. It's not going to help you, even if you want to change the lure later. If you don't catch any fish, it didn't help you in the end. So like when I talk about techniques and tactics, I'm not usually talking about what's going to work in your local pond. Usually a lot more stuff than I talk about will work in those kind of places. Alright, we'll talk about the shaky head. Where to throw it, why to throw it instead of Texas rig or anything else. And the shaky head for me, it comes down to there's a certain kind of worm I want to throw. Not a place, not a style. Yeah, I'm doing great today. I can't complain. I'm live. Yeah, I can't think of anything else positive to say. I'm doing great. I'm live. So if anyone's ever live and tells you they're not doing okay, they're lying. Alright, you can attach like these kind of, you know, a jig head or a shaky head. Any kind of knot that works for you, that you have confidence in. If you want to do a Palomar, you do a Palomar. If you want to do improved clinch, I just did an improved clinch. Alright, the shaky head. So this is going to work kind of like the Ned, which I didn't get to yet. This is where you're going to want to throw a trick worm. A trick worm is a lot like a Cinco, but it has a lot more action. It's about the same length. It's almost the same shape. It doesn't have a wavy tail or anything, but it gets thinner in the middle right here and has a bigger end. This is a trick worm. They're going to have a lot of action. They're going to be in the middle of winter. If the bite's real tough, you're not going to want to throw a trick worm over something like a Cinco that has no action. So the reason that a Cinco gets bit so well, we'll talk about it right now, is it's something called a finesse bait. If you think about a ribbon tail worm, it's got that long tail and has all that action. And then you think about a Cinco. The Cinco moves through the water and almost does nothing. If you're Texas rigging a Cinco, it's almost doing nothing. It's moving through the water like a stick. When the fish get super picky in the middle of the winter, they don't want to move very fast. Think about when you get up and it's freezing outside. You don't want to move very fast. They're not going to go chase things down. Same with the bait. Everything that they're eating is not swimming super fast to get away from them. The water's freezing, so it's barely moving through the water column. Those are the kind of times when it's not necessarily the action of the worm, you know, the wiggling, but it's less action. The Cinco's moving through the water and doing nothing. During the winter, that's how things are going to act. They're not going to be moving a bunch. So that's why the Cinco actually gets bit. It's because it's lack of action. It's a finesse bait. This is also a finesse bait, but this has a lot more action. It's not the lack of action that gets this one bit. So you're going to rig this one like you would a Texas rig, except for you screw it. There's a screw lock right here. You screw it in, and then you rig it like a Texas rig. One thing that I hate when I see people throw a shaky head is when they get it super bent here. Like a little bend is okay, but always try to rig your plastics as straight as possible. Alright, so this is going to sit on the bottom, and the tail is going to sit up right here. This is what this weight's for. The weight's going to stay on the bottom, and the tail is going to be up in the air. It's weedless. You can throw this into a lot of grass, but it's not as weedless as a Texas rig. So you're going to throw this more around sparse grass, not like thick mats, but you see a little grass on the top, there's spaces in between, you know. You can throw this around rocks. The ball head does okay getting through rocks, but if you're going to want to do that, you're going to want to find one, it's called a football head. That does a lot better at going through rocks. You can throw this around wood, trees, logs, that kind of thing. It's going to be perfect. Is my chat frozen up? Can somebody say something so I know if my chat's frozen or not? If you throw this on trees, that's going to be perfect. It's not going to get snagged up on wood. It's going to go right through. The places I use these, I don't throw these. But you could throw this anywhere you would a Texas rig or a drop shot. Thank you. Yeah, okay. You know what? For that now. Got your wish, Jack. And if anyone has any questions, if anyone wants like any tips on anything I'm talking about, I'm just rambling, just go ahead and, you know, ask them up. All right. I'm gonna go over stuff that you guys I'm sure know as well. This one you could throw any time of year, anywhere. It's just a solid bait for all the time. Oh, we gotta do the chicken rig. I'll get to the chicken rig here in a second. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, Jose. Welcome in, Bay Fishing, Jack, Beth. If I don't read your comment, I'm sorry. My eyes aren't great. You know. I should get to it though. The chat's not going fast. Alright. This one I'm actually gonna talk about the plastic a little bit too. I think that anybody, no matter where you are, should get some of these. Even with that being said, I haven't had a ton of luck on them here, but I know that it definitely works. These are the Power Bait HD shad. They got a realistic picture finish, but they're just basically like a fluke bait. Now flukes, they have the tail straight up and down like this. Super flukes have the tail to the side. So this is a fluke style bait, you know, no slit in it. All fluke style baits can be thrown on a matching jig head. Alright? And when am I going to throw this? I'm going to throw this when I just can't get another bite. When I can't get a bite on anything else. Or this time of year is a great time because what happens is the bass get keyed in on whatever bait fish there is. So if there's gizzard shad in your lake, they're keyed in on big stuff, you know, lucky you. In my lake, there happens to only be threadfin shad, and they don't even get 3 inches. So huge 10-pound bass are eating, you know, little minnows that are this big, and they won't bite anything else. You throw something like this, it's a great way to get them when they're keyed in on small baits, you know. Coming up till the end of August, they're eating a lot of different things, but when it really starts getting hot at the end of August, and here in a couple, like a week or even 2 weeks, it's going to change almost around the country. I mean, it's going to change quick, you know, the fall pattern's going to come in. But when it gets hard in August, you know, it gets hot, they don't want to eat, they could just be keyed in on things. They've been seeing baits all year, you know, they've seen everything that you have to offer and everyone else has to offer. Something like this can save your day. It can be the skunk buster, you know. It's just really realistic shad imitation. And what you do, 60 degrees, damn, 60 degrees would be really nice right now. It is 100 outside of my house right now. It's 12 o'clock and it's 100. So this kind of thing, if you're on a boat, if you have imaging, or if you know where a school of fish is, basically you're gonna cast past them, and you're gonna do nothing. You're just gonna let it drop. If you're fishing around huge bait balls, you're gonna cast out. You're gonna let it drop. The key to this one is it's a do nothing rig. Shad, when they die, they fall out of the school. The tail is gonna do most of it for you. You're just gonna let it drop, and once you get to the bottom, slow crank it back. Slow crank it along the bottom. That rig, when the going gets tough, it works for me. Now you would think, since the fish key in on small shad, why don't you just throw that on a drop shot all year? And I've tried, and they just won't bite it. And I can't tell you what makes this more presentable than this on the same exact rig, but it is. The worm works way better. Okay, every time the worm works, every time way better. Dude, small paddle tail on an Ed rig, that does not sound stupid. I mean, I get that it sounds like not everyone's throwing that, but fire. A small paddle tail in general is fire if they're keyed in on small stuff. Alright, what else? What we got here? Alright, any questions? We'll talk about hard baits. We'll talk about hard baits here in a second. Dude, I agree with that. Small paddle tail on a Ned rig. And it sounds crazy, but it really does matter like what paddle tail. Like, I really love the Kitex, and then you get something that's just a Kitex knockoff that should work fine, and you just seem to not get the same bites on it. I don't even like Cincos, and I feel like that's how I feel about Fat Cat. What's going on? That's how I feel about Cincos. The Gary Yamamoto will get you 10 times more bites than like the Dinger, and I don't even like Cincos. What's going on? So we were talking about drop shotting, Texas rig, weightless Texas rig, shaky head. Oh yeah, chicken rig. Chicken rig is not super common. Now guys, don't get super mad at me because I don't have a nail weight. I don't have a nail weight, but I have another way that I do this. You should use a nail weight. And even if you didn't have a nail weight, you go find a literal nail and cut it with a bolt cutter into like 4 sections and shove that in your worm. But I'll show you guys what I do to do the chicken rig without a nail weight. Alright, weightless hook. I did an improved clinch knot to this. Don't bite your line. You'll end up with chipped teeth. If you get lucky like me, they'll be chipped sharp so that you can still bite line really good, but just don't do it. Alright. This is gonna seem a little crazy to some of you guys, just bear with me, because I'm telling you it works. Alright, so I tied my hook on, no weight. The next thing I'm gonna wanna do, I'm gonna take my Cinco here, and I already rigged this one up, so there's already a little hole. But what I do is I'll take a hook like this, kind of want to make sure there's a start of a hole right in the top of the Cinco. It's kind of important if you don't have a nail weight. If you don't have a nail weight. Alright, Jack, you have a good one. What I have right here is some tiny little split shots. I mean, they are the smallest ones you can get, and you're going to want to shove it into the hole of the Cinco. You're going to want to get it into the head of the Cinco. It's not going to be super easy, but it's worth it. All right. I got one. Now this is weighted on one end. Weighted on one end, okay? In the front. You're gonna take it and you're gonna do this backwards. You're gonna come down probably about a quarter of the way from the tail. You don't wanna go in, and everyone knows how to Texas rig. Come out about a quarter inch. Pay attention to what I'm doing. And you're gonna go up to the lock. This is really another method of wacky rig. All right, there you go. So you got it a quarter inch right there. Same thing you would always do with a Texas rig. Expose it. So, I don't like that. All right, let's rig this one more time. Let's rig this one more time. I just didn't like how it has a little turn. Another thing you can do, start up higher than I'd started and go through a good little bit. This one's gonna work better. So you're gonna go through a good little bit. You're gonna want to thread it up onto your line a little bit. All right, see, the worm's threaded on my line a little bit. The hook is down by the bottom. This is the chicken rig. It's a little bit different. The weight is in the bottom. So now it sits straight up and down like this. You wiggle and you have more action than it's ever had. I mean, it sits straight up and down. You can do this with other worms too, like a ribbon tail. You want to take it like far up the line, and then when you wiggle your line, you know, you get all this extra action, but it also sits straight up like this. So this is the chicken rig, and I like it more on something like a lizard or a creature bait than a Cinco, because I don't like Cincos. Welcome in, welcome in. But that's the chicken rig. For that one, you can look it up and get a little better description from somebody else probably. Alright. Anybody have any questions? What do you guys want? What's your guys' favorite baits? I'll do some more talking about hard baits right now. I would tell you guys more tactics about soft plastics, but I'm not sure I have everything I need to rig more rigs. I'm gonna leave swim baits out of this video. We'll talk about fishing large swim baits in the next live. Alright, so I know what to talk about. Thank you for the hearts. So it's late August. I mean, it's hot out there. It's a hard time to fish. When you get to spring fishing, you get there in the spring, you notice bass are chasing shit down. They're following your lure. You're catching fish. It's just one of the best times. And then into the summer, it's pretty good, but it starts getting a little harder. Late August can be one of the hardest times. This is just before the bite starts picking up in the fall. And it gets pretty easy to get skunked this time of year. And there's a couple things you can do to make sure that, not that that doesn't happen, but there's less of a chance of that happening. And the first one is going to be downsizing. So whatever you're catching fish on just even a month before, say you're throwing a walking bait, or you're throwing a crankbait, or you're throwing soft plastics, you know, anything, a jig, downsize it. The weather gets hot and the fish, they're getting lazier, and they're not wanting, they're not wanting to commit to as big of a bait. Trying to get these apart. They're not You know, downsizing in late August is going to help you out. Now, every bite is not going to be as big of a bite, but you're still going to get big fish mixed in. If I'm throwing, you know, just your regular super spook, you know, all year round, then late August, I'm going to want to come in with a smaller, big difference too, silent one. It's huge, it's important, silent, finesse, downsizing. You can see how torn up this bait is. I mean, it's got hook rash. This one does wonders for me. But it doesn't matter. It's not about just even that bait. If you're fishing a jig or right here, you're fishing, what I'm saying is just downsize. Downsize. Silver also, I'm gonna give you guys a quick tip. I'm gonna tangent off. But silver, right here, like this, you may not think it's a super natural color, like those greens that blend in, but silver is the most natural color you can get. Right now, it's reflecting every color of the room. But when this gets down in the grass, it's only reflecting the color of the grass. So when it's moving through, the color is invisible, but the shape is there. This is one of the most natural colors. While people think like, oh, that silver, you know, it stands out so much. Silver is actually a natural color. Downsizing in August. That's what I was talking about. So, say you're throwing a you know, just your regular basic popper. Maybe think about throwing a hula popper. You know, the mini hula popper. Or where is it? This is one of my biggest examples of downsizing. I do it, I over downsize here, and people freak out, but it works for me really well. My favorite jerkbait, it's been X-Wrap. X-Wrap's just my favorite jerkbait. It's just downright gets bit. Late August, and also sometimes though in early spring, I'll be throwing this. It's the exact same jerkbait in a whole different size. So I go from this, late August, I'm throwing this one. I'm catching the same size fish. Look at the difference. I mean, downsizing makes a huge difference. You'd see a lot of bass fishermen, they would never throw a bait this tiny. And I'm telling you, it's elephants eat peanuts. It's not about the size of the bait. That's the size of the bait that they're all eating anyways. So, let me think. I think this is a 1XD or a 10XD. I can't remember if size goes up or down, but it's the Rapala X-Wrap, you know, in the small size. Downsizing this time of year is just what works. Another great example. Spring, you started throwing that plopper, you're getting those bites, you can't stop. Stop getting those bites, maybe just try downsizing. Everyone already knows this one, but downsize, you know. At the end of August, we're gonna do something completely different. We're gonna do the exact opposite. We've been downsizing, we're gonna supersize everything once it gets to the fall. Bigger bait fish are getting chased. Once the water starts cooling down, stuff starts speeding up. So now, you won't catch me throwing this little tiny bait anymore that I have so much confidence in. A week before, you'll catch me throwing something as big as I can get. Which I have a bigger one than this. This is not the biggest walking bait, but during the fall, it's time to upsize. They're hitting big walking baits, and I'm talking about small fish. Like I just talked about big fish eating small baits. You catch half-pounders on huge walking baits during the fall, when just a couple weeks before, nothing would have hit that size of a walking bait. So right now, if you're having a hard time fishing, think finesse. Downsize what you're already doing. You already know what works in your lake. Take the same presentations, finesse them, you know, make them downsized. When you're throwing these soft plastics, I didn't get into it too much. Everyone likes to shake the rod as much as they can, shake the rod as much as they can. That's a problem. You see these little minnows, you see all the shad, or even if you see a trout swim by, is it shaking around as much as it can as it swims by? It swims by smoothly. So when you're working a lot of these soft plastics, especially the drop shot, stop shaking as much, reel it in, just smooth, just swim it across the water column. These kind of things are going to help you get a lot more bites this time of year when the fishing gets tough in the heat. Now during the winter it gets tough again, and that's a whole nother story. Alright. What do I use for snook? I live in California, so we don't have any. What would I use for snook? I mean, I don't know. I guess live bait. I don't really know. Wow. Downsize when really hot, really cold. Yeah, exactly. When it's really cold. So I don't necessarily downsize when it's really cold. It does work. Yeah, downsizing, throwing something like a Helgramite on a drop shot, that's always going to be like key when bite's not working. But during the winter, I go super size. I'm throwing big swim baits. You go out to the lake, you might only get 1 or 2 bites anyways. So throw a huge swim bait. Now what it is during the cold, the fish don't want to move a lot. They're not super active. But if they can get a big meal in, they're going to be able to chill and not hunt for a lot longer. And they will. They'll eat a large meal before they do what they call staging up. And that means they'll just go to somewhere shallow and just chill after they eat a huge meal. They'll eat a rainbow trout, a 10-inch rainbow trout. And so if you're going to be, fishing the winter and you're going to be grinding for 1 or 2 bites, you might as well grind for the biggest bites you can. And that's when I throw soft swim baits. I mean, I love all swim baits, don't get me wrong. I love glide baits and I love swim baits, but soft paddle tail swim baits, Huddle Stens, Ospreys, anything like that. And the way that you're going to throw them during the winter, you're going to cast out, you're going to wait, get to the bottom, and you're going to start grinding so slow, you're going to be bored. You're going to hate every second of it. I mean, I'm telling you, it's not a fun way to fish. You're going to be thinking, that tail on that bait, there's no way it's even moving with the water. But it doesn't matter. Every time that bait hits a little rock, that tail is going to move. And that's just a secondary movement. It doesn't matter. When you think about a fish swimming along the bottom, it's not flapping its tail. Those big bass, and I fish Clear Lake a lot, where we have double-digit bass a lot, those big bass, they want it to move slow, they want it to be an easy meal, and it doesn't matter how big this 10-inch swim bait, they're going to hit it head first. So that's how I fish during the winter. I go super sized. And if it's not like a swim bait or something like that, then I'm throwing a 12-inch worm, you know what I mean? I'm throwing something big, because if you're going to fish for just a couple bites, they might as well be the bites that you want, you know what I mean? But if you just really can't, you've been skunked and you can't get bit and it's been a tough winter, always come back to this, throw a Cinco. I just prefer not to ever throw Cincos, ever. Fish, we don't have any perch where I'm from. Like, we don't have walleye or yellow perch. We have stuff they call perch, like sea perch and surf perch, and we have like bluegill they call perch. But this should work. These techniques should work, but the baits, obviously, just downsize the baits. Anything I'm saying for techniques should work, but think about something more perch or walleye specific bait, you know what I'm saying? Like a smaller, a smaller swim bait or a brighter colored swim bait. Don't they use like really bright colors for walleye, like pinks and yellows and chartreuses? I'd say the same thing, if it's cold, let it drop to the bottom. Slow grind, slow grind. If it's the middle of winter, don't ever even tie on a topwater. If there's no fish splashing around, don't ever even try it. It's ridiculous, Another thing, middle of winter, I can't get a bite. I've tried soft plastics, nothing's worked. The last couple of times the skunk buster for me, and I already showed you guys this one, jerkbait. You go to your jerkbait, and like I said, everything's moving slow. So when you fish your jerkbait, jerk, let it pause. 1, 2, 3, count to 10 if you want. 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, just let it sit. You want to have a suspending jerkbait. So what happens is the fish, when they're cold like that, they'll take a little, quick little dart to something, but then they'll kind of sit there and suspend and look at where they're going to go next, and then they'll do it again. That's exactly how a jerkbait works. So when the water's super cold, you're not going to be fishing a jerkbait, bam, 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 jerk, 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 all aggressively like you normally would. Pop, and sit there, check your text, look at that bird, pop, sit there. I mean, it should take you a few minutes to even get that bait back in. And if it's taking you, if it feels boring, like you're taking way too long on each cast, you probably have a good chance during the winter. Right now, during the heat, it's not about working slow so much as it is about firing them up and matching the presentation. Like, everything is keyed into, like I said, super, super small shad, even smaller than this. Almost nothing I have in my box looks enough like it that they're gonna fall for it. I mean, I can be staring at a school of fish and cast every lure in my box, and then just by chance a little shad washes up on the beach and I throw it on a hook, and the second it touches the water they eat it. You have to match the hatch way better in late August than you would any other time of year, in my opinion. Oh, I'm talking about bass. See, I like salmon, they're cool, but salmon, what I think most people don't understand, have way better eyes than most people give them credit for. So I caught, it wasn't a salmon, but I caught a steelhead, big steelhead. I cut it open to eat it. I checked its stomach to see what it was eating. Everything in its stomach was this big. I mean, this is a huge fish, eating things smaller than mayflies. The very biggest thing I found in its stomach was one single salmon egg. So they're tying like egg sacks, casting them out. One single salmon egg. That's the biggest thing that it ate the whole trip up the river. So they have better eyes than people give them credit for. If I was to start like really seriously going for salmon, I would be paying more attention to detail than I do for bass. I do have to say that. That's not everybody's opinion, though. Alright. Let's talk about rigging. I know. Let's talk about Ned rigs. It's pretty basic, though. Yeah, I caught my steelhead. Most of the steelhead I've caught were actually on anchovies in fresh water. But when you get into like river systems, salmon and steelhead act differently farther up. You know what I mean? They don't want to eat a lot once they've switched to fresh water for a while. That's the power bait. I'm in California. This is the powered bait HD shad on a chatterbait. This is a really good cold water bait. It's got a very fine wiggle. In the middle of summer, you're gonna want to use something more like a square bill. It's got a wide wobble. Got 7 people in. Heck yeah, dude. Alright, I'm in California. I'm in Northern California, though. So when you think of California, people normally think of LA. I'm nowhere near LA. So don't think of LA. No, I'm in Northern California. And the fishing in my area would compare to kind of like the heat of Florida or Texas. You know what I mean? I live in this really hot area. And so the bass grow big, and they kind of have similar patterns as the Texas and Florida. Now Florida is obviously going to have way more water or anything like that. Yeah, that makes sense. Catching steelhead down there would be like pretty wild. I don't like Southern California. Don't get me wrong, like it's still California, but alright, what else? Yeah, here in a week or two, when the fall pattern comes around, biggest walking bait you could find. I mean, that's not even big. I like to throw the heat in baby bass color. It's like the big one with 3 hooks and silent, and that's what gets me a lot of my bites, a lot of my top water bites during the fall is a big walking bait. I actually don't even know the science perfectly about why they switch to such big stuff, but in my opinion, I'm pretty sure it's summer, you know, they got a fast metabolism, they got to eat a lot, and then during fall, everything starts cooling down. They got to start getting some big meals in before winter comes around. So I'm pretty sure that's why they switch, because you already know winter bass is going to be the fattest bass. They need that fat. So right now, we're probably somewhere in between downsizing and upsizing. Like, I don't know where the lake is exactly in their pattern right now. I haven't been to the lake for probably 2 weeks now, so I'm a little nervous to get out there. But I already know. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to catch them. But I like when they bite the first bait I tie on. From SoCal area. Yeah, I think I would like Washington more than I would like Southern California. I don't like the idea of LA, and I don't know. You know how people think of the people. I just don't like that thought. Where you're gonna use this kind of bait? Well, anywhere you have pike, just go ahead and use a rat. But so this is a very specific kind of lure for me. There is certain lakes where a rat bite will come in play, and it's always going to be beating the bank. You're never going to be open water fishing with this. You can get lucky. Of course, there's flukes, but there is some very specific places where a rat works good. And I'm sure you guys have been to lakes like this, where you look over the lake and you see weeds across the whole top, except for the edge. There's about 4 feet pocket of clear around the edge where there's not weeds. That's one key to say you might get onto a rat bite. But then other than that, it has to be wooded around. Like certain lakes, you can get onto a fire rat bite, but I'm telling you, it's not every lake. When I did it, it was one of the funnest days ever. Alright, square bill. We're going to talk fishing square bill. So this is one of my favorite baits, in one of my favorite colors. Yes, you're welcome for the tips. When you're throwing a square bill, you want this to be in contact with the bottom, like you would with a Texas rig. I mean, this thing only dives 4 to 6 feet, and so that means when you're casting it, and I went over this before today, you're not casting towards the center of the lake. You're gonna walk up to the water, turn to the left or the right, and you're gonna cast along the bank. And what happens is this is gonna come, you know, like a square bill does, wiggling through the water. You want it to be near the bottom, so you want to cast where you think about 9 feet is, because all along the way it's going to get shallower, but progressively. When it's running along the bottom, every time it hits a rock, it's going to run off to the side a little bit and come back. That's what's going to trigger the bites. Every time it hits a rock, it's going to do something a little different. It wiggles through the water, yeah, that's great, and that's exciting, but it's the contact off of any other object, you know, rocks or wood or anything like that, it makes it veer off a little bit, and that's called a hunting action. When the bait's going through the water, hits something, goes off, and then returns back to its path, it's called a hunting action, and that's what gets a lot of the bites. Now with this one specifically, Strike King is not like the best lure company maker or anything. This is supposed to be a suspending, so it's not supposed to move. And every other bait does something different. Either slowly sinks or it suspends like nose forward or whatever it does. It slowly floats because they don't have it perfect. But when you get one that perfectly suspends, try not to snag it and break it off, because that is a very special bait. So you'll be grinding, you're cranking it in, stop and just wait, and start cranking real fast. They're not gonna hit when it stops. They're gonna hit as soon as it starts again. What happens is a fish will be following and it'll stop, and they'll stop to look at it, and the second that the bait moves, they're thinking, oh, it's trying to get away. It'll get a reaction strike. It's kind of like when you jerk the jerkbait, or when you lift the jig fast, or when you pull the rattle trap through the grass, and you get that bite. It's a reaction bite. Knowing about a reaction bite is super important in bass fishing, because there's times that fish aren't eating. They're not going to eat nothing, and the only way to get a bite is going to be to get them to react to the bait. They don't even want to eat it. They have no reason to intake that bait right then, but they'll do it out of reaction. It's important to know what triggers that. Musky fishing, they go for reaction bites too in musky fishing sometimes, so it's like, it's an important thing. Alright. Tired of looking loose for a second. Dude, what do you fish for in Washington? You probably got some salmon there, huh? You probably got better steelhead than we've got here. The place that I caught steelhead in, it wasn't like the sportiest of places. Like a lagoon broke open. They all came in. I mean, there was hundreds of them in there. And then I casted anchovies. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I went with a fly rod or a spinner. Or I didn't fool them, you know. Alright. So this is my rod. So I'm going to rig up what I want to fish when I get there. Tomorrow. I'm going to rig up the drop shot again. Let's see. I think I want to do it about 2 feet off the bottom. All right. It's important to tie your drop shots right. I know how to tie a drop shot, and then it looks like crap. That doesn't work for me. Watching game. Our bass under double digit. I'm obsessed with lose. The Mach 1 broke. Decent replacement after. You know, you're gonna break a lot of rods. I'm glad that they sent another one to replace it. But you gotta start thinking about, it's good to have the best gear. I like to have good gear. I got down there on a Shimano Corrado and a Shimano SLX, both DC. They're really nice reels. For the rods break. I went ahead and just got the toughest rod I could with the best reel I could. I can cast far, I have good action. I haven't broke my rod in like, it's been over 5 years that I haven't broke my rod, and I beat the crap out of it. I got the Ugly Stick GX2 and then put whatever reel I want on it. Think about investing in Ugly Sticks if you're rough on your gear. Like, if you break rods, if you break another one, just think, no matter what you would have done to break that rod, it wouldn't have happened with an Ugly Stick. You can take it and start beating it on the concrete, then stick it under, your car tires as you back up. It's not gonna break. It's gonna be fine. It might even feel better when you're fishing with it after that. But then there is something to be said about that. A rod that always feels the same, did it feel that good to start off with? You know what I mean? Yep. Yeah, you can't. Look, you can't do this one. Don't do that one. That was even, that right there, I didn't even get close to picking it up. That made me nervous. You don't want to do that one. Another one you don't ever want to do. Don't ever pull your line out this way. If you're gonna pull your drag out, pull it that way, but never pull this one. That you'll break a rod tip so easy. You're just trying to pull some line out. No, always pull straight. Never step on this area on accident. You just throw your rod down, you caught a fish, let it go, and then turn around, you accidentally step on your rod, think things are fine. It's not. Your rod is gonna break after you step on it. It's almost a guarantee. Yeah, dude. Oh. Alright, I gotta go. I spilled something. I gotta clean this up. I might be back.